And we should probably move into the debate that we hinted at earlier, which you'll be moderating, Shawn. And you'll be joined here by Abu Mosa, Jeff Klann, and Thomas McCoy. So why don't we transition into that debate?
So it sounded fun to end with a debate, so I thought. What's happening? Oh, that's been a problem the whole time, has been that. Yes, yes. I mean, because people on the hotspot don't have access to. Well, yeah, put that in the middle. That's great. Wonderful, yeah. Okay, that's a good. Wonderful. That's exactly. Nice physical cues. That's really important. Yes. Yes. So let me start with, so it was kind of a random choice as to which of these fine individuals got assigned kind of to which part of the debate, in that we all came up with this idea, I have to say. We actually came up with this idea at AMIA. And then the idea was kind of put into place, but it wasn't determined very early as far as who was actually going to be what, I should say. So, so it was totally random. And we did choose 3 different models. So we've kind of been getting to this the whole day in a way, right? And it kind of got embodied with this question we got about Cosmos, Epic Cosmos. The question was kind of, well, why don't you just use Epic Cosmos, I think was one part of it, right? And then I kind of started to answer it, and then I thought, let's not do that, because these gentlemen are much better at answering questions like that than me. So, but what I will do is explain what the 3 things are. So, so there is a central concept of get all the data and put it in one central location. So get it from all the different hospitals and put your data in one central place where people can analyze it all at one time, like, in one database. This has been very popular in Epic Cosmos is an example of that. N3C at NCATS is an example of that, as are other kind of platforms like Truveta and so forth, which are for commercial use, which are sold basically to use a glot of database in one place. The second approach is federated, which is you have your data you have put together into a central place at your hospital. And let's just say it's under the I2B2 umbrella in this case, but it's in a central place, but it's at your hospital. That is, the entity that's actually like originally responsible for the data, it was collected there legally. I mean, your hospital is bound by HIPAA to keep that data secure. The patient has to gets a notification that says that hospital is going to have your data. And it says it's going to be used for research. And so each hospital might have this location, but then it stays at the hospital. So, all the policies of the hospital apply to that. And if you want to work on the data with one big analysis for the entire country, you would have to take that analysis and ship it to each hospital, and then have them run that analysis at the hospital, and then ship the answers back, perhaps to a central location. This is essentially what the Shrine does, right? It's querying. It goes, you send a query to each hospital. Each hospital runs in its database engine to find the count of patients who satisfy, how many patients had breast cancer and survived for 3 years. And then it takes the counts and it ships them back, right? And each hospital comes back with the count. And if you want to add them up, that's fine. But each hospital individually shipped back the counts to the central location. So all the analysis happened, and only kind of a number was returned. All right. There's also a third option that's emerged, which is a hybrid. So the idea with a hybrid is that you don't have to ship all the data from your hospital to a central location forever, which is usually the deal with a centralized location or centralized strategy. Instead, you do a query, like we talked about with the Shrine, to find, okay, all the patients who had breast cancer and survived for 3 years. And then you take those patients and you put their data into what we call an ephemeral database, which is, it comes into this database, a very limited number of people can look at the data in the database. It only is going to exist for the duration of the study. Let's say it's for 2 years, they're going to analyze this data. And then after that, it'll be archived. It won't be accessible any longer, right? So you've limited the number to just the study itself that's going to be conducted on the data, and you limited the time to just what the study needs. So that's the hybrid approach, using ephemeral enclaves. All right. So now the true experts are going to talk about, who, by the way, are all quite versed on all 3 different models, but we're somewhat randomly assigned one or the other, are going to discuss things. I don't even have any idea what order we should do this in or how that will proceed. Should we do right? I don't know. Right to left? Who should start? Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Jeff starts. Oh, should he go last? You want him to go last? Last it is. All right. Sounds good. So Jeff, just so we know, is the federated approach. Jeff is the federated approach. I see. Yeah. So if you're facing that, yeah. So Jeff is federated, Tom is hybrid, and Mosa is. All right. Cool.
All right. Okay. So federated networks are great. They're the best because the institutions don't have to agree to ship their data to other institutions and store things in the data networks that they have to trust other data centers other than their own. They can keep all of their data behind their firewall. It doesn't have to go anywhere. They just can compute answers to questions, can do statistical analysis based on information that comes in, and they only have to ship the answers to the questions outside of their firewall. So they're simple to set up in terms of governance, because there's no agreements that have to go about PHI going to outside of the institutional firewall. And it also allows local expertise to be involved in the data. So if there is, say, a study that is querying diabetes patients. And my institution, the result comes back that I only have 20 diabetes patients. Well, I still have access to my data. I am the owner of my data. So a person can come to me and say, why do you only have 20 diabetes patients? And I can dig into it and look into my ETL process. And then without doing any kind of magic on the network, the next query that comes in after I fix the data will give me the right answer. So they're agile, they're based on local expertise, they don't involve shipping data out, and they have strong data security. And that you can build these platforms like Shrine that allow you to query these networks in real time. The challenges of federated networks, of course, is that they are very complicated. Simple governance-wise, simple in some data perspectives, data harmonization, but very complicated to set up the infrastructure needed, setting up a Shrine hub and connecting, exchanging certificates across all the sites or everyone with the hub in order to do this, and the massive amounts of development time that have gone into creating the software infrastructure to do these federated networks is quite challenging. And there's limited things that can actually be done in terms of analysis until you make contacts and agreements with the institutions and you do things sort of more like a hybrid network. You're only able to do things that the software platform and the governance agreement allows you to do. So that's the pros and cons.
Thank you, Jeff. Awesome.
Well, thank you for presenting your witnesses. Oh, do you hear me? I think I'm on the mic now.
It sounds great.
Well, I want to give great thanks to my colleague for showing all the weaknesses first, right? Want to keep everything with him, and at the same time, there are a lot of disadvantages. Just think about from research perspective. Well, I'm a researcher. I want to analyze my entire population, which we want in a large volume, and be able to extract all the features that I need and analyze in a integrated way. No loss of information because of at the site level aggregation. And I can answer the best result if I put all data together in one single place. Now, don't tell me that you have issues shipping the data in a one single place. Please don't. Because if you have trust issue, probably let's not even participate in research, right? But if you don't have any trust issues, then let's talk about governance. What works for each other to bring all the data in one single place without leaving much complexity of computational resources, local governance, data mapping, everything, and very distributed to everywhere, like distributing all the causes everywhere, versus bringing all the causes in one single place and solving this together. So the central solution does bring a lot of flexibility for the researcher. And I think that's probably one of the things that, that keeps it stand out from the other two approaches. Thank you.
That's great, Mosa, but what are the
And none of them are my personal opinion. I'm just holding the position.
What are the disadvantages? You have to say what the disadvantages are. You have to.
I thought the opponents are going to tell why it's a bad idea. But I can tell the disadvantages too.
Oh, I guess I didn't organize the slide.
No,
very
that's
well.
okay.
Yeah.
If it's the demand. Now the weaknesses. The biggest challenge. The biggest challenge here is the trust issue. The trust at different layers. That's my view on it. Bringing a lot of institutions, a lot of people together to agree on one single way of doing things. Just name it. How to bring the data together, how to model it, how to represent the data, what kind of database shall we use? And then also, what are you going to do with my data once I put it in the central location? Will you be able to map the right way in the central location that I have the knowledge locally? Hugely important. The local institution knows a lot of operational details that actually fits into the data modeling. That gives all the strength to the federated model. Data representation is more accurate. Any local data issue can be resolved. There is no blindness. How the data is being managed in the central location, how it is mapped without knowing the local information. Has it been done right? Bringing all together, the central approach has those disadvantages, even though we think that the operational process is going to be much simple. So even though the central sounds very nice and fancy, it can do cool thing, obviously the central folks can do all the thing, but then it's not actually a partnership approach where every institution is also involved beyond shipping the data into the data mapping process, governance process, and even research discovery process. So I would say these are the disadvantages from the central perspective. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Tom.
All right, so I am going to tell you how we put this panel together as my argument, and I'm going to do it by co-opting Diane's help. Diane, I think you have the program in front of you. Will you remind me, what is the title of this debate? That's right. I didn't make the title. What do you make of that? So we're standing around in the lobby and we're like, this is what everyone's talking about. We should do this debate. And then we had an oh shit moment. Neither of the two we're talking about is what actually happens in the real world. So my argument for hybrid is the existence proof. It's not what's on anyone's mind, but it's what we all do. So why is it on our mind? It's kind of the gray goo answer. It's, well, a little from column A, a little from column B. It doesn't look great on the whiteboard. It's not super fun to think about, but it has the advantage of actually working out, which allows us to, do things, which does have merit at the end of the day. And so this is the one that in practice we end up doing. And I think the reason we end up doing it is if we do something audacious and we actually get out of our chairs and we go and ask patients questions, this largely comports with their concerns. If you say to patients, do you want to use your healthcare data for research? A majority of them, a small majority, regrettably, but a majority of them will say yes. And then you say, well, what do you care about? Why don't you all say yes? And the answer is they want to know who's going to use it and what they're going to use it for. Well, if you want to know who's going to use it and what they're going to use it for, you inevitably end up with these time, place, and manner restrictions on the data. And it turns out patients are willing to donate their data if you tell them who's going to use it and what they're going to use it for. They're happy to let an institution they trust use it. They're generally not super excited about the institution transferring it to other people or letting other people use it. So to the extent we want to reflect our patients' stated interests, and of course, surveys aren't great. There's a diversity of opinion amongst the 65% or so of patients who will say they're onto it. It's all very murky, but in general, I want to know who's going to use it and what they're going to use it for. And that inevitably brings us to, we ad hoc little centralized networks or databases together to answer specific questions, and then when that group dissolves, we have to tear them down. Now, It's particularly important to me because I spend most of my day working on medical devices. So it turns out if we're going to actually turn any of these things around and turn them into medical devices, well, now you're a manufacturer, and you're going to have to retain that data set as the manufacturer of record. So we can't do federated because the data set is now ephemeral and ever-changing. And I just told you patients aren't actually excited about centralized, so what are you left with? You're left with this gray goose solution where we're going to contract to do a specific thing with a specific set of data that we can guarantee a patient we're going to do, and then we're going to retain that as the manufacturer of record when we ship the product to the marketplace. So my argument is, it doesn't look great on a whiteboard, it's not super fun to talk about, it's the one you think about last when you're standing in the lobby at AMIA, but it does have the merit of actually being the one we do. So that is my argument for the hybrid solution.
Mosa, what do you think of the hot statement that Tom made about patients don't like a central solution?
From patient perspective, I would say, regardless, they want to know what happened with their data. But probably most importantly, they want to be assured that nothing happened that might harm them from various perspectives. So regardless, it's probably more institutional sensitivity in terms of their responsibility on being custodian and protecting patient privacy. And although we can argue that we can build trust and have a standard governance process, we also want to give some sort of autonomy, self-service functions to investigator. And that probably leaves a hole in terms of what if someone asks question, find information, which might have legal implication. If they know it, it might go in other direction. So that's one, but I think we can, from legal ethical perspective, there might be other components that might show up that institutions might have sensitivity. A small scale central, I think, is feasible. That's what happened in the past. But as you try to go larger scale, I think disagreements become a lot. But I would say it's beyond the patient's preference versus the institutions trying to protect that. Just think about a research study or other study collecting data directly from patient with a consent, or a commercial organization just got all the data, right? Just because people wants to do business with them, they don't have any issues. They were not worried because there is no regulation asking them, oh, you can't do certain thing. You just know I think one of the data loss recently happened nationally, 23andMe story, and I think it's scaring people death, and institutions' concern is, I think, really valid from this perspective, whereas those company or corporations doesn't have much of responsibility, but I think as a covered entity, it brings a lot of liability and responsibility to the institution. Regardless, one of the other way, I think those concerns are very important and needs to be taken care into the consideration when we make decisions.
Jeff, thank you, Mosa. What do you think about, I think Mosa said something about it's a lot easier to do these analyses centrally than federated. And so, what do you think the price is, right, to do a federal approach in terms of, people actually being able to get the project done?
And get the answers to the research question.
Yeah. So I've been involved in a number of federated networks, and so like take an ACT. It's an amazing network. You can get an answer to a very simple research question, like how many patients in these 40 sites have a particular disease and have certain demographics, and you can get the answer back in a minute. But what do you do then? And so for that reason, Enact has kind of been becoming a bit of a hybrid network in that for our loyalty cohort project, for example, partnered with Michelle and Darren and other institutions, and we shared our code and ran analyses on our data and like combined our analyses and put them together. So kind of creating our own sort of hybrid approach for that sub-study. And now we're doing ephemeral enclaves, which allow us to pool data for a short period of time and do a particular analysis. So I think federated networks, from what I've seen, are an absolutely awesome way to get started, but it doesn't really get you to an end product of a full research question.
All right, Tom, do you think you have the solution? And you're going to have the last word because we only have 2 minutes.
I would just like to point out that Jeff just told us that he accepts random code by email to execute. So at the end of the day, every federated network is just a fancy name for remote code execution. And I think that's a thought we can all go home feeling good about.
And with that closing remark, we will give the stage back to Mark, I think.